Dhamma greetings. This is Ayya Dhammadinna, I'm a Buddhist nun and Candana Bhikkhu's one of his students. As you're about to watch a Dhamma talk by Bhante, please note that he's a wandering homeless monk and he doesn't have regular support from a Buddhist community. So he lives thanks to your donations. So if you are benefiting from Bhante's work, please consider making a donation via the link that is provided. Thank you.
This week happens to be week number 85 of our Sutta Exploration series. And during the course of about, I think, nearing 3 years or so, we have covered some wonderful suttas. And I'm glad to say that today's sutta will be yet another jewel or gem in those series of suttas that we explored together, especially because this is a powerful sutta. You can even think of it as a no-nonsense sutta. It doesn't have the typical story or, like in a prose manner. But it's not dry either, which makes it quite unique. Again, it is from the Samyutta Nikaya, which is from the connected discourses or linked discourses, linked in the sense that thematically they are linked together. And it is a sutta that uses the 5 khandhas, the aggregates. Throughout the lifetime of Lord Buddha, he was asked countless times as to, is there a shortcut to Nibbāna? What are the ways, or what is the way? Is there a very good, tested, tried method, a system other than already what he had been teaching? Because at times during, in the practitioner's life, sometimes things can be complex. They don't have to be, but we like to make things complicated. That's how we human beings are. But in his compassion, Lord Buddha would always, go down to the level of the questioner and point back, in many cases, to the thing that makes the person a person, namely the 5 aggregates. Lord Buddha had divided the person into 5. And aggregate is, in Pali, it's khandha. Khandha means basically a bundle of sticks, reeds. Think of it like reeds. Sticks. If you ever had a fireplace or lit a fire somewhere and you go to the store or even in the woods, you collect them and you make them into a aggregate, a bundle. Especially when these sticks are leaning against each other. That's basically an aggregate. But what happens is, if you remove one of those sticks, they come up, they fall. Because each one is relying on the other. So it's not just basically some terminology or some abstract division of the personality of the individual, but Lord Buddha gave names to each of these 5. Pancha means 5, Khandha means the aggregates. But the first one is Rupa, or form, or material form, which we get from the 4 primaries. You can think of them as the 4 elements, as in not necessarily actual elements, like metals and say wood or water and things. However, they do also find themselves in those things as well. But think of them in the form of hardness, let's say, for earth element, solidity. So the body, basically, form obviously is referring to the body that needs to sustain itself on these four. If you remove one of these elements, the whole thing comes apart. The form falls apart. The fetus will not, well, the egg will not join with the sperm to form an embryo, to form a fetus. That's not going to work because one of them is missing. The other one is water or liquidy, fluidity. The other one is fire or fiery, heat. If you remove any of these, the embryo, the fetus will not work, including not just even at that stage of a being, the formation of the person's body, let's say. But even now, you remove any of these elements from you, your body right now, you die. Or at least, at the very least, there will be some severe sickness. And the fourth element, think of it in the terms of gaseous or airy or windy. Sometimes it can also be seen as cavities, spaces between joints, spaces within your nostrils, in the spine itself, within which you have the synovial fluid flowing, the spinal cord, the spaces within the bone itself. Now, if there's an imbalance, the whole thing falls apart, such as in the case of a bone, for example, it will turn into osteoporosis because that means there's too much of the air element or gaseous element or space or cavities within the bone. However, too little of it, then there's too much of a density and the person's teeth will fall apart because there's no capillaries, there's no veins that will go to supply blood into the bones. So this is just one aspect of the rupa khanda, which is the form. However, Lord Buddha adds the statement that yes, you have these four, but also it needs sustenance in the form of food and nourishment, plus the egg and sperm that we get from our parents. So you think of it in a simple fashion, that to be the rupa khanda. Then we get to the Vedana, which is feeling. And then you get to Sanya, which is perception, or I like to view it often in the form of memory, because memories are the things that trigger thoughts more often than not, in connection to feelings, sensations. All of a sudden, you're in memory land because of this tiny little thing that happened. So those are three already aggregates. Then we get to the sankharas. These are the big ones. These are the ones that we are influenced highly by. These are the things that create that momentum, where we go, this is who I am. This is how I work, okay? Leave me alone. This is how I function. This is, we justify them basically, good or bad. And then you get to the fifth khanda, which is your consciousness. Consciousness, however, compared to Western philosophy or Western psychology, this is not the same as it's used in the West. But consciousness in the form of sense awareness of the six senses, the ayatana, salayatana, the eye consciousness that happens when you have a healthy working eye, functioning eye, and the thing that the eye sees, meaning a visible form. Obviously, you need to have the corroborating elements around it, such as light, because you might have a visible object, you have also a functioning eye, but it's too dark to be seen. So these factors have to be placed in there. And then you have to have the attention, like we've done I think a few months ago, a sutta on that, where the attention is equally important in order for there to be eye consciousness, for you to see that object. So in that sense, you multiply that by 5 more times, in the sense that you have the eyes, you have the ears, you have the nose, you have the tongue, you have the body, you have the mind that cognizes what? Thoughts. And Lord Buddha emphasizes the importance of the thought or mind consciousness. That is the big one. That's really the powerful one among all 6. Because long after the thing was seen, long after the thing that was heard or touched, you're still gestating, you're still lost in how that feeling was. You're creating more and more thoughts, what we call papanchas, mental proliferation. Why or how? Thanks to the mind consciousness. So here you have, in a nutshell, the 5 aggregates, which I wanted to present in a very, brief manner before we dig in, although there's a lot of information here that's going to elaborate on what I just shared with you, try to explain on briefly on the khandhas. So this is the Khajjanīya Sutta from the Samyutta Nikaya, Sutta number 22.79. So SN 22.79, it comes from the Khandavagga Samyutta, meaning the collection of discourses that are about the khandhas, the aggregates. And then we have it comes from the Khanda Samyutta section. And then from that, we have also the section called, the subgrouping called Khajjanīya, just like the namesake of this sutta, Vagga, the section that deals with suttas that address being harassed. That's how I translated Khajjanīya. Sometimes other translators have used terms like being itched or the itch. I found it to be more apt to use the term harassment, because these are always harassing us, taunting us, poking at us, these aggregates, as you'll find out. So, Khajjanīya Sutta number 22.79 from Samyutta Nikaya. Let's begin. Once, while the Blessed One was living in the city of Savatthi, he addressed the bhikkhus by saying, Bhikkhus, all those recluses and Brahmins who remember their many past lives, all do so by recollecting one or the other of the 5 grabbing aggregates, khandha. And what are the 5? That's another way of looking at it. The reason why we are continuously seeking rebirth, we desire re-becoming in one form or another, is because we grab on to these 5 that I just mentioned, the aggregates, the khandhas. Just like I was referring to the sankharas as, this is my personality, leave me alone. This is how I react to situations, leave me alone. This is who I am. These are my feelings, these are my memories. You hurt me there, and I recall the memories to prove that this really did occur. This is my body, which I have to beautify, I have to worry about, da-da-da-da-da. All that, when you look for the common denominator, the theme that runs through all of these, in connection to all these 5 aggregates, is the sense of belonging that we find, the identification that we find with these 5. For that, Lord Buddha had a term. He called it not just pancha khandha, but he called it pancha upadana khandha, which oftentimes people don't even realize or don't even care to want to elaborate on or understand. Upadana means grabbing. It's not just clinging or grasping, it's grabbing and holding on so tightly to yourself. You see it, in fact, as part and parcel of who you are. So because of this, we suffer. And worst of all, because of this, we suffer in this life and we hold on to that identification at the moment of death. And Lord Buddha had a term for that. He said that type of clinging is, or grabbing, is called upadinna. Upadinna, that craving for re-becoming, for another bhava. This is coming back to the 12 links of causal relations, paticca samuppada, dependent origination. So that's the thing which takes a person eventually to birth. But when you narrow it down as to the spark, what triggered it? There was this upadinna, or the longing to keep holding on. A perfect example of this would be if you've seen an infant, a baby, a newborn, and you go and get your index finger close to their hand, and they're with their tiny little chubby hands, if they trust you enough, they will grab hold of your finger and they will grab it so tightly. I think most of us have experienced this. And they hold it so tightly. I've tried this with my nephews and my nieces when they were newborns. And I would lift my finger up, and guess what comes along with it? Their whole body. You can carry the baby up with 2 fingers. Not to be thrilled about our ability to lift a human being, although a baby, up with 2 fingers, but I think the credit goes to the child and the longing to grab. And that same longing, or upadinna, is also the reason why the consciousness goes and finds an embryo that's forming. It grabs on to this future person to be by injecting its consciousness into that. But, I don't want to sidetrack here, but basically, you see how it's pervasive, this grabbing attitude that we have. It's so, it goes beyond time and space. It reaches from this life to the next. That's why it's so crucial for us to be aware of this throughout life, so that when that moment comes of death, you do not hold on to the body. You do not hold on to anything. You don't grab on to anything. And that's why we practice meditation, to soften into the state of non-agitation, to the state of tranquility, where you can relax and see the whole process of death taking place, instead of freaking out or instead of being afraid of anything. After all, you've gone through it countless times. Nothing new, actually. Again, I digress. Let's come back. So what are the 5, Lord Buddha says? While recalling the past, bhikkhus, he does it by reflecting. Previously, in such and such a past life, such was my form. Such was the look, and such was the way that I looked and appeared. So this is how he remembers the past, in connection only to the form or appearance he had in his former lives. So he sees himself as, oh, this is who I was. Sometimes people go through, past life regression and things like that, and they see themselves, identify themselves as a reincarnation of something. They look at themselves as this form, identify again, even though that thing is past and gone. So they remember the past in that fashion, in connection to the appearance. Similarly, while recalling the past, because he does it by reflecting, previously in such and such a past life, such was my feeling. Such was the way I felt. So this is how he remembers the past, in connection only to the feelings he had in his former life. So Lord Buddha just gave 2 examples. One is the type of person who would look at the form, the material form, how they looked. The other one would look at how they felt. So feeling becomes the lens through which they would look at that life. So this is in relation to individuals who had the ability to see their past lives. And that's why Lord Buddha said that in the beginning. Similarly, while recalling the past bhikkhus, he does it by reflecting. Previously, in such and such a past life, such was my perception. Such was the way I perceived and remembered. So perception then becomes their modus operandi, their way of looking, their lens. So this is how he remembers the past in connection only to the perception he had in his former lives. Similarly, while recalling the past bhikkhus, he does it by reflecting. Previously, in such and such a past life, such were my habitual drives, my sankharas. Such was the way I was led by my habitual drives, sankharas. So this is how he remembers the past in connection only to the habitual drive, sankhara, he had in his former lives. And similarly, as you see, he's going through the five aggregates, and this is going to be the vijnana portion, or the consciousness, the last of the aggregates. Similarly, while recalling the past bhikkhus, he does it by reflecting. Previously, in such and such a past life, such were my consciousnesses, the vijnana. There's no S in Pali, so the I, if it ends in an I, it goes longer. That's diacritical mark. So consciousnesses here, again, it's referring to the six consciousnesses that I mentioned, the eye, ear, etc. So such was the way I became aware of and experienced the world through my consciousness, vijnana. So this is how he remembers the past in connection only to the consciousness, vijnana, he had in his former lives. Now, by the way, this is not a teaching simply about or for those individuals who can see their past lives. Please don't make that mistake in thinking that it is. It's not. All you have to do is to find your your relatedness to this teaching is look at your day today. That is already started for you, or nearing the end in some cases. What is it that stands out as you having experienced today? This living experience that you've had thus far, what is it that stands out the most? With which eyes is it that you are viewing this past few hours of your day? Typically, it will be one of the aggregates that stands out the most at a time. So it could be a memory. It could be a feeling that has left its mark on you, a feeling you've had. Maybe it was even from yesterday. Maybe it was a memory. Maybe it was one of the consciousnesses, sense awareness, etc. Maybe it was something that you're feeling pain. You've hit your knee somewhere yesterday and it's still hurting. So that becomes the lens with which you look at your life now, right here. So what I'm trying to say is it does not necessarily only refer to past lives. So how the person sees and views their life is through the aggregates, Lord Buddha is saying, whether you're able to see past lives or whether you're able to see only a few hours ago what happened. So this is also about you. Don't make a mistake about that. Now, Lord Buddha continues. And what is the reason, bhikkhus, for which they call it a form? It is because it inevitably ends up getting deformed. This is very interesting. Twisted or warped, bhikkhus. Thus, it is called form. But deformed, twisted, or warped, in what way, bhikkhus? So he's giving the questions and he's answering. It is deformed, twisted, or warped by the experiencing of cold, deformed, twisted, and warped by heat, deformed, twisted, and warped by hunger, deformed, twisted, and warped by thirst, by gadflies or mosquitoes, by the wind, the sun, by serpents and other slithering animals and insects. So now you're doing great and you're outside in your garden, you're working or you're enjoying the sun, suddenly there's a stinging wasp or something, or the heat is too much. What do? 5 minutes ago or 5 hours ago, you felt great. Now you feel horrible. Form, the body, seeks shelter because you just, you sunburned, for example. Or it's too cold, now you're freezing. Your teeth are just, what's happening? The form is becoming deformed. So you need to establish some form of a homeostasis for it to feel comfortable. Therefore, because it is called a form for the reason of becoming deformed, twisted, and warped by such things. And what is the reason, because for which they call it a feeling? It is because one feels things. Thus, it is called a feeling. Pretty self-explanatory, but in Buddhism, Lord Buddha has explained to us, in very general terms, as far as how many feeling types there are. There's pleasurable feeling, lovely, basically, that one enjoys. Second is a feeling that is loathsome. That causes a pain. So it's a painful feeling. Fear is a painful feeling, although it's an emotion, but it gives us a painful feeling. So sometimes people confuse emotions and feelings. So to make things easy, there's 3 types of feeling in the Dhamma: pleasurable, painful, and neutral. These are the feeling. The third one is the type of feeling that is neither pleasurable nor painful. Okay? The way the skin on your forearm feels, let's say, on the outer forearm skin. Unless somebody touches it, you're not going to feel, or the back of the knee, or the knee itself, the skin. You're like very blasé about it until something happens, and then there's a positive or a negative feeling registered. So those are the 3 feelings. And what is it that one feels? Because one feels pleasure, one feels pain, and one feels neutral. Therefore, because it is called a feeling for the reason of something being felt, whether it is pleasurable, painful, or neutral. And what is the reason, because for which they call it a perception? It is because one perceives and remembers things. Thus, it is called a perception. And what is it that one perceives or remembers? Because one perceives or remembers, for example, things or experiences that are blue in color, or experience. Things or experiences that are yellow in color, or experience. Things or experiences that are red in color, or experience. Things or experiences that are white in color, or experience. Now, why the colors? Lord Buddha could have easily said, let's say, if you notice, he is highlighting here the first of the salayatana, of the meaning the eye consciousness, what it perceives. So in relation to the eye, we see colors. It's the visible light spectrum, right? From the electromagnetic spectrum, which is so narrow. So we see in relation to colors. But Lord Buddha could have easily chosen, let's say here, hearing. But it's much more discernible when it comes to visual versus a loud sound, low-pitched sound, etc. Or texture that you can touch, something that you can touch that is so smooth versus something that is so rough, like sandpaper. Even sandpaper, you have different variations, gradients of sandpaper, right? So you have the rougher kind, and then you have the softer kind. So this was the easiest way to convey as to what it is meant by perceiving, namely the visual aspect of experiencing perception. Therefore, because it is for this reason that it is called perception, whereby something is being perceived or remembered. When you are given a name, not a name, a word. Let's say I'm going to throw a word out there, elephant. Did you see the image of an elephant? Or did you see the actual letters of an elephant, or the texture of the hide, the skin of the elephant, how it feels when you touch it? Most of the time we see an image. It could be a caricature, it could be a stick figure of an elephant, especially when I say a pink elephant. Boom, it's very quick. The eyes all of a sudden go to work, because over 72% of information that we get from life is through visual. Visually is perceived more so than others. Obviously, hearing is a close next, a second. So let's go to the next one. And what is the reason, bhikkhus, for which they call them habitual drives? So now he's on the number 4, the sankhara. It is because while being conditioned themselves, they go on constantly conditioning other things, other phenomena, to be impelled and coerced. Thus, they are called habitual drives. So they are driving force, they are momentum, they cause things to happen. But Lord Buddha says here, and from the start, they themselves are conditioned. A perfect example here would be a child that was relatively a quiet child, who didn't have any temper tantrums, who is obedient, who listens, who does his homework. Now you take that child and you allow him to spend time with some brutish and bullying type of kids as their friend. Kids that don't listen to their parents, kids that don't do their homework. They're very disruptive in class and at home, very disrespectful. What do you think will happen to this child? You guessed it. Just like it is the case with any fruits that you put in a box of other fruits, similar fruits that are all gone bad. This healthy looking fruit is also going to be affected. So what happened? Well, that's another example of a sankhara, the way I can explain it. So it itself now has been influenced, conditioned, and then I take that new fruit that now is inedible, that is spoiled itself. It wasn't spoiled, remember. It got spoiled because I placed it in the wrong box of bad fruits. Now I take that newly rotten fruit, which wasn't always like that, and then place it in a box of other fruits that are very healthy, ready to be eaten. And I keep it there for a while. What will happen to the others? The ones that don't have any dents on them, no spots on them. They also are now going to be corrupted. So sankharas are like that. In essence, they're always conditioning things. And they themselves are conditioned by other situations, other things that have been. This is where past lives are really, really something to consider, because that's where the momentum is. So it's like an avalanche from a beginningless past. And that's coming down. So when you behave in a certain way, it could be also from this life, mind you. So this is where it's not like we can't do anything about it. Far from it, we can. And that's why we're practicing. Sila is one of the first deterrents of this. The momentum of sankharas. Wisdom, panya, that's why we practice samadhi. So sila and samadhi. And that opens up to panya, which is the discernment with which we see, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I don't have to do this. It hurts if I behave like this. It hurts people around me that I love. So I shouldn't talk like that. So this is where the person is putting these roadblocks, restraint, applying oneself wisely. So then you start to diminish the intensity, the power, the potency of these sankharas from conditioning new situations that are equally deplorable. And what is it that they condition? What are the phenomena that they impel and coerce? Bhikkhus, form itself is a conditioned phenomenon, for it comes about as the result of and conditioned by habitual drives, the sankhara themselves, which impel and coerce it into being. So form. So you can take sankharas and then turn it around and like a magnifying glass and look back at the other four sankharas. In fact, all the khandas, I'm sorry, you can look at all the five khandas through the goggles, through the lens of the sankhara. This is very powerful way of explaining the Dhamma, by the way. This is really I wouldn't say brain surgery, but it's very beautifully laid out, but it is accessible by all. So if you look at the form that we were talking about, the sankharas, I'm sorry, the form, the material form that I was saying about the four elements, mom and dad, nutrition or nourishment to sustain us, the sankharas are impacting that formulation of the form, the materiality of the form, how it comes together. Similarly, feeling itself is a conditioned phenomenon, for it comes about as the result of and conditioned by habitual drives, the sankhara themselves, which impel and coerce it into being. I think I was about 13 or 14 years old when I heard, I think I was watching a documentary or heard someone say something along the lines of pain. Is it culturally influenced or not? And I was very curious. And this person, this expert, was saying that if you were to take a child, same age, same sex, and you expose them to the same type of, let's say, injury or a pinch, a child in, I don't know, Norway will react to that pinch perhaps with an ouch. You take that same phenomenon, it could be obviously worse than that, a pinch, you go to the Mediterranean or the Middle East or some other part of Southern Europe, let's say, and you do the same thing and they will react with an ouch. And then you go to Africa or to Brazil, deep in the jungles, and you have that same pinch occur to the same age, let's say a boy. There's hardly a sound. But what happened? Conditionality. So the conditionality of the person, conditionality of the situation rather, will cause you to have a different type of feeling. So feeling itself is conditioned. One of the things that I would do with my, let's say, nieces or nephews when they were growing up, and it's inevitable, children will fall when they're playing or something, and they fall. And especially when they're learning to stand up and walk. And usually the child will cry if you give it attention. If you look and with a surprise and you go, oh, they need to give you a certain corresponding response, and they will look at others around them. if there's a shock from those around them, they will also eventually start to cry or at least display some shock. What I discovered, however, was if you completely ignore it or belittle that event, or look at something else, or like subterfuge, suddenly the child, even if it was a painful thing, they will stop crying pretty quick, pretty fast. And this is a technique that I had learned from my parents or my grandmother. And every time I would hit, and I would hit my head a lot, and I would fall, and we had marble floors, and I would injure myself. And then to my horror, it didn't make an impact on them, of my fall, despite how painful it was. What I mean by that is I saw my mother or my grandmother pointing to the marble floor and say, "Oh, look at what you did. You cracked the marble floor. What are we going to say to Dad now when he comes home?" And now, even though I'm in pain and maybe I'm even crying, shedding some tears, I was really pulling the brakes on my tears and my feeling of pain. I was like, okay, I guess this is uncalled for. I shouldn't be feeling so much pain. Again, I'm not saying this is the healthiest thing, but the conditions surrounding the feeling itself, let's not toss it out. Feeling itself, Lord Buddha says, is highly conditioned by the sankharas, the habitual drives. So if I'm a person who always gets attention if I cry, I'm going to cry. Why? Because I like to get attention. I'm sure each of us have many examples from our own lives of individuals we know who fall in that category. Similarly, perception itself is a conditioned phenomenon, for it comes about as a result of and conditioned by habitual drives, the sankhara themselves, which impel and coerce it into being. Excuse me. We all have memories. We have lived a life. We are living a life. We have many, many memories. But depending on the type of conditions that we have undergone, meaning specifically sankharas, sometimes we're going to go ahead and put more of a credence, trust, and validity upon certain types of memories more than others. I would discover this actually both in therapy sessions and also in classrooms, where I would ask someone a question and they would go back, hone in on a negative memory, refusing to see anything positive. Especially in terms of couples therapy, I would see this a lot. And I would say, okay, you lived together for like 10, 12 years. How did you manage? I mean, there must have been some good things that brought you guys together. And then finally they crack a smile and they say, yeah, you're right. But I have to coax them. I have to drag them to go back and look at their memory bank again to be fair with the selection process. So what I'm saying is our selection process is not the most pristine. It's quite filtered, in fact. It's quite biased. Again, why? Because of sankharas. So check the quality of your memories. Are you being truthful? Has your life been always that bad? Really? Nothing good has happened? So you see how Lord Buddha is even addressing mental sickness here, emotional sickness, psychological sickness, or mental health, if you want to call it. Also, the sankhara themselves are conditioned phenomena already, for they come about as the result of and conditioned by habitual drives. The sankhara themselves, perpetuating them further, which again impel and coerce them into being endlessly, triggering, instigating, pushing them. Just like I was saying, that fruit that was healthy, ripe, ready to be eaten, or that child who was doing his own work, very respectful, happy-go-lucky little kid, and now is in ruins, behaviorally, psychologically. You don't want him to even walk your dog. That's how distrustful he's become, or untrustworthy, rather. And you take that kid now and you take him to a group of other kids. What do you think? Good kids. And what are those good kids are going to do? Exactly. So the baton is now being passed on. The sickness is being passed on. The conditionality of sankhara causes other conditionality and goes on like this endlessly. Now you just have been provided with a new definition of samsara. Samsara is not simply going about from life to life. There's a tremendous damage that's being caused to us and our surroundings by each of these births that we grace this planet with if we end up in the same place. So these are not just some terminologies, some breakdowns of a human being. These are part and parcel of who and what we are and how we're living life, these khandhas, these 5 khandhas. So far, I've only said the 4, so we'll go to the 5th one. Similarly, consciousness or sense awareness, vijnana itself, is a conditioned phenomena, for it comes about as the result of and conditioned by habitual drives, the sankhara themselves, which impel and coerce it into being. Therefore, because it is because while being conditioned themselves, they go on constantly conditioning other things, other phenomena, to be impelled and coerced. Thus, they are called habitual drives. I was saying something to someone the other day, but they were anticipating that I would be saying something else. And just to test it, I preemptively went ahead and said something that was very positive. I used to do this also in the classroom with high school kids. But because given that context, that situation, in the past, this individual had seen me kind of chastising them, guess what they thought I was doing now? They thought I was chastising them again, meaning they did not hear me speak, even though they heard me speak, but they didn't hear what I said. So I had to say, excuse me, let me say it again. Did you hear me say? And then they stop. This is why I give that exercise to people, the listening exercise. 1 minute, if you're 2 people, 1 minute, one of you is going to speak while the other one is going to be completely quiet. Not preparing the weaponry for a defense, for an offense, for an attack. No, but just to listen to what is being said. And once that 1 minute is over, that listener is going to now speak, but only say, this is what I heard you say. Is this correct? This is what I heard you say also. Is this correct? And then the speaker needs to validate that. It needs to say yes or no. This is a perfect way to really practice listening. And most of us need that practice. Because when we listen, when we look at things, we never see them as they are. We're seeing what we are expecting to see, what we're expecting to hear. So we got a lot of baggage, a lot of agendas, if you will. And that's why sati is extremely important, because it places you smack dab in the center of what's happening now, in the here and now. Are you with your hands, with your arms as it's moving in the air? And the way you keep banging things around, your knees or the things, or when you're washing dishes, let's say, boom, boom, boom. What does that mean? All that noise. The banging of the pots and pans when you wash, or when you come out of a room and go get in your car, drive somewhere, and then go get to your destination an hour later, and then you say, how did I get here? That means there was no sati. You were lost in your la-la land of thoughts, agendas. And then Lord Buddha now goes to the 5th. That was all dedicated to the sankhara portion, which was the 4th. So now he's going to go ahead to the 5th. And what is the reason, bhikkhus, for which they call it consciousness, vijnana? It is because one becomes aware and conscious of something. One becomes cognizant of things. Thus, it is called a consciousness or consciousnesses. And what is it that one becomes aware and conscious of? What does one cognize, bhikkhus? One becomes aware and conscious of and cognizes, for example, with flavors, becoming aware of a sour taste, a bitter taste, or spicy and pungent, or one that is sweet, or whatever that is mild, salty, oily, and or tasteless, or tasty. So earlier we looked at perception, and Lord Buddha used the example of visual perception, right? So here he's changing it up and looking simply at the sensory perception of the tongue, gustatory. So it's not like only these are considered consciousness, of course, but he's just selected this because otherwise it would be longer, this section. Therefore, because it is for this reason that it is called consciousnesses, vijnana, whereby it distinguishes and becomes aware of the differences in experience. So you know the difference between hot and cold. You know the difference between spicy and sweet, salty and lacking salt. To this end, because the noble disciple pauses and reflects in this manner. I am now being harassed and attacked by various forms. I remember, though, how in the past also I was harassed and attacked by various similar forms, and in the very same manner that I presently am being harassed and attacked by these various forms. Now, if I were to continue looking forward to experience various forms within the future, wanting to enjoy more delightful forms in what is yet to happen, then in the future also I will certainly be harassed and attacked by various forms, yet again, in much the same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by various forms. So this is a person who's saying, I see a pattern here. I keep falling into the same hole. But this is what we do. This is what I usually explain as the pendulum. You go into a painful experience, and what do we immediately do? We want to get its opposite. Opposite, meaning pleasurable and lovely feeling, and that it keeps the economy going. And that keeps you burning from both ends, depleting your energy, and definitely keeping yourself agitated and stressed throughout your day, throughout your life. Never happy, ultimately, because your happiness depends on what happens in the next moment, because you're waiting for a different kind of form that is better than this one, even though you know that that expectation got you in trouble in the first place yesterday. This is the quintessential image of the donkey that's following the carrot on a stick. And that's what we do. Having reflected and considered thus, he becomes unagitated, indifferent, and cooled towards forms and appearances experienced in the past. So this is not a put down of the human condition. This is for us to see where we're going wrong. Why is there suffering? This is the first noble truth that we are looking at, meaning looking carefully and seeing the second noble truth, dukkha and samudaya. We are looking at the cause of why am I in pain. That's why it's important for us to have these moments by ourselves where we consider, why am I in pain? Why am I in sorrow? Why am I so tight? Why am I so tense? And then by seeing it, the person becomes cooled. You see that that's not you. Ultimately, it's just you're following wrong steps. But if you follow different steps, the right steps, you won't be in that boat again. You won't be in that ditch again. And this gives you a sense of freedom from it. And that's another name for Nirodha. You're free. The pain ceased. We talk about cessation. What is cessation? Cessation of pain. Suffering. That is what is ending. Nobody comes and gives you an award with your name on it, says, okay, you've attained Nibbāna, here you go. Go happy, be just fine, you're good to go. No, you realize the cessation of suffering in you thanks to the way you are now perceiving and living your life. Talk about authorship of your life. Talk about taking ownership of your life, responsibility of your life. Likewise, he does not become anxious and instead remains unagitated without being tossed around by any desire to seek delight in various forms to be experienced in the future. Things, excuse me, things that have not yet happened. Thus, he practices by pausing and reflecting carefully within the present as he experiences disenchantment, becoming dispassionate and allowing the fading away of his old attachments towards all forms and appearances. In this way, he experiences the cessation of suffering regarding all forms and appearances, whether pertaining to the past, present, or future. Pick out any person in a modern society, so-called modern society. Nobody's actually happy with the body they have. That's why gym memberships skyrocket right around halfway through December, and they die out midway through January. Because everybody wants to get thin, healthy, etc. They want to look like that person over there, that person over there, not this person over here. Why? Attachment to forms and appearances. These are not just words. This is about us. Rupa Kanda is not about some word that you have to look up in the Pali dictionary. Look in the mirror. Specifically, look at the attitude that comes up when you're looking at the mirror to your body, to your face, to your hands, to images of your past, photographs. And what is your relationship to that now? And you can see whether there are any attachments or not. Okay, now we go to the second section of the sutta. Next, because the noble disciple pauses and reflects in this manner. So that was in relation to forms or rupa. Now he's going to be talking about, the feeling aspect of it. So the person is now pausing to reflect. I am now being harassed and attacked by various feelings. I remember, though, how in the past also I was harassed and attacked by various similar feelings. And in the very same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by these various feelings. Do you have a common theme in your feelings that you experience on a daily basis? Chances are we all do. One type of feeling more than others. And that's what the person is asking. Have I experienced these feelings? So you're looking for patterns. Something that today's society fails miserably at doing. We're just like that little cat or little child who's just like whatever is tossed in front of it, that's where we go. Oh, what is that? That's the epitome of being dumb. But when you're looking at the Dhamma, it's all about looking at patterns. A higher intellect, a higher thinking mind, a mature mind looks not at the contents. They look at the grander scheme of things. They pull back, pan out, as they say, and look at what's really happening. Patterns, which we don't do now. But most importantly, we have to look at the patterns of our lives. That's number one. That matters the most. Now, if I were to, this is the person reflecting. Now, if I were to continue looking forward to experience various similar feelings within the future, wanting to enjoy more delightful feelings in what is yet to happen, then in the future also, I will certainly be harassed and attacked by various similar feelings, yet again, in much the same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by various feelings. That's why constantly trying to do positive thinking doesn't work. Because you're going to go through fluctuations. But the attachment to these feelings is what really matters. You need to be observant of these feelings. Is there a pattern? Yes. Okay, so am I repeating that pattern? Okay, yes, I am. How am I ending up feeling? So this is calling discernment into action, our discernment, to take, again, like I was saying, ownership and responsibility of what I'm feeling. So you're not just simply there in the passenger seat and you have to deal with whatever comes at you. No, nothing in the Dhamma is that. I've never come across any teaching in the Dhamma that says that you're just a passenger, so you just deal with it. You have nothing you can do about this. No. Talk about empowerment. This is true empowerment. This is true empowerment. You're taking ownership. You're in control of how you respond to situations by carefully scrutinizing. That's why wisdom is number one in this path. So, having reflected and considered thus, he becomes unagitated, indifferent, and cool towards feelings experienced in the past. Yeah, you hurt me. Okay, you hurt me. Fine, I get it. But you came back and you apologized, and I forgave you. Yeah, but you hurt me. Okay, hold on. We moved past that. Remember, everything is conditional, especially if I see the person having changed. Sometimes the hurt is so bad, you forgive the person, but the act itself is unforgivable. And it's not a type of a situation where you can allow that person to come back into your life, because chances are they might do it again. So you're not chained to that painful feeling, but you're not also causing yourself to undergo similar feelings again in the future. So there's responsibility of protection. So you say thanks, but no thanks. I'm done with that past. But I'm definitely relinquishing that painful experience, the feeling. I'm done with that. This again is empowerment. Likewise, he does not become anxious and instead remains unagitated, without being tossed around by any desire to seek delight in various feelings to be experienced in the future, things that have not yet happened. Thus, he practices by pausing and reflecting carefully within the present as he experiences disenchantment. In Pali, it's called Nibbāna, disenchantment, pulling, withdrawing, becoming dispassionate, viraga, and allowing the fading away of his old attachments towards all feelings. In this way, he experiences the cessation of suffering that results from feelings, whether pertaining to the past, present, or future. It's not just the feeling that causes pain. It's what the feeling, if it skulks around, if it sticks around, and if it gets festered in our mind, in our heart, what that does, that's the problem. It ferments the heart. It destroys our sanity. The heart is no longer peaceful. It gets agitated, whether through a memory or feeling. So the suffering comes after a painful feeling. I think it was at the university, one of the courses, the professor was giving us an example of how fast or how long do we think the duration of a painful feeling is. Something, you experience some very painful feeling. Let's say something happened to you physically. How long do you think it lasts temporally? So everybody gave a different number. 4 minutes, 40 seconds, 10 minutes, day, 2 days, 1 week. What? 1/400th of a second, he said. I still scratch my head over that. It's like, what? They've tested human beings who were experiencing pain, and they brought it down to, it's not even a second. physiologically speaking, the pain itself, the painful feeling, what the mind does with that, regurgitating that in the form of memories, taking it personally, and then replaying that tape again and again. And all of a sudden you have, what in music they still do call it, I think, a sampling, right? If you have a keyboard, you play a few notes, but you record it. And then you put that, even if it's like 1 second long, and you loop it. That loop, meaning it's going to repeat flawlessly, seamlessly for the end of time. We do that with our mind. It's dangerous stuff. Now you understand suffering and how we are the authors of our suffering, as well as the authors of our release from suffering, liberation from suffering. Next, bhikkhus, the noble disciple pauses and reflects in this manner. I am now being harassed and attacked by various perceptions and memories. I remember, though, how in the past also I was harassed and attacked by various similar perceptions and memories, in the same manner that I am presently harassed and attacked by these various perceptions and memories. Now, if I were to continue looking forward to experience various similar perceptions and memories within the future, wanting to enjoy more delightful perceptions or memories in what is yet to come, then in the future also I will certainly be harassed and attacked by various similar perceptions or memories. Yet again, in much the same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by various perceptions and memories. Again, the pendulum should come to mind. Going back and forth. This is the middle path. We need to have the courage to stay in the middle path, on the middle path, which means not going around seeking an agitated state of mind. Because the painful, the pleasurable or lovely feeling, it's impossible for it to stay pleasurable or lovely. And that's why a lot of people, including sadly grown-ups, like to go to Disneyland. Sadly. I would look at these people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Some people I knew, they had an annual pass, which they had paid over $1,500 per person. What is wrong with you? A grown-up person that I'm never going to see at 55 again, the age of 55, they're going to Disney. Why though? What is this sickness all about? They want to place themselves in some happy-go-lucky state, which doesn't exist. It's all plastic. It's all plastic, glued on plastic. But that's what we want. That's why we like to go and see the same type of movies, to feel reignited. That's why we need holidays to celebrate Valentine's or love or something, as if the rest of the year doesn't count, as an opportunity to live metta, love, loving kindness, compassion. So you see the stupid games we play. Likewise, he does not become anxious and instead remains unagitated, without being tossed around by any desire to seek delight in various perceptions to be experienced in the future, things that have not yet happened. And thus he practices by pausing and reflecting carefully within the present, as he experiences disenchantment, becoming dispassionate, and allowing the fading away of his old attachments towards all perceptions and memories. In this way, he experiences the cessation of suffering that results from perceptions and memories, whether pertaining to the past, present, or future. Our attachment to our memories is also why we have the series of lamentation, pain, grief, anguish, heartache, and distress. The whole mass of suffering that we have to undergo, which really reaches its peak or begins to reach its peak when we are alone, when we're sick, and especially when we're older and the body's decayed and decaying. all these memories start to haunt us because there's no way for us to repeat. But remember the upadinna, the longing to re-become, the grabbing onto that, craving to re-experience. Well, that's the problem. That's the main virus. That's the main bacterium. That is the main disease that keeps us stuck and chained, shackled to ignorance, embodied in the continuous, ceaseless lives that we call samsara, in the whirlpool of pure dukkha, suffering. Then Lord Buddha goes to the Sankhara section. Next, because the noble disciple pauses and reflects in this manner. I am now being harassed and attacked by various habitual drives. I remember sankharas. I remember, though, how in the past also I was harassed and attacked by various similar habitual drives, in the same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by these various habitual drives. Now, if I were to continue looking forward to experience various similar habitual drives within the future, wanting to enjoy more delightful habitual drives in what is yet to happen, then in the future also I will certainly be harassed and attacked by various similar habitual drives, yet again, in much the same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by various habitual drives. Lord Buddha gave the example of a mango. He says, what do you get from a mango tree? You get a mango. You're not going to get a lemon. You're not going to get an apple or cherries or apricots. You're going to get a mango from a mango tree. But that's what we try to do, don't we? We force, we push, we squeeze, we fight. Even in our sitting meditation, we fight to establish some tranquility, meaning we're fighting with mind objects, but using what? Other mind objects. Good luck creating peace and calm in the mind in such a state of affairs. It's not going to happen. It's like those people who say, we want to establish peace in the world, and for that we want to destroy this population, that area. We're going to send this fleet of weapons and kill and what? What was the purpose again? Peace. War has never created peace. War has never brought peace, ever. Not even in our wildest dreams. But we do that in our lives. We're doing it in our minds. It's like a parent who beats their child. Really beats them up and says, I want to make sure you end up being a good kid. Respectful, loving. Well, how is the parent doing that? How is it going to come about? Not that way, for sure. 100% guaranteed that that the child will never be loving and caring, but highly probable that the child, over 99% accuracy, that the child will end up doing a repeat of that type of parenting, because that's what they saw. But we're doing the same thing to us. So we have to change our approach. And for that, we need discernment. And that's why we have these teachings, these wonderful guides as to how to go about doing it. Lord Buddha broke it down, prepared it, just like a mother that cuts, or a parent that cuts the food, the meat. My mom used to cut, let's say, pieces of meat or whatever I was eating, and into tiny little squares to make it easily chewable. Lord Buddha is doing that. That's why he has 84,000 chewable pieces of Dhamma for us. Having reflected and considered thus, he becomes unagitated, indifferent, and cool towards habitual drives experienced in the past. Likewise, he does not become anxious and instead remains unagitated without being tossed around by any desire to seek delight in various sankharas to be experienced in the future. Whether good or bad sankhara, they're sankhara. We need to go beyond them. You're not going to carry any of the sankharas with you to the other shore, Lord Buddha says. Okay? In fact, you're not even going to carry the Dhamma with you to the other side. The Dhamma is simply a tool, a raft, a boat that you need to cross this flood of misery, of these floods of passions that bring suffering. The desires, the clinging, the grabbing, the ignorance. Thus, he practices by pausing and reflecting carefully within the present as he experiences disenchantment, becoming dispassionate, and allowing the fading away of his old attachments towards all habitual drives. In this way, he experiences the cessation of suffering that results from sankharas, whether pertaining to the past, present, or future. One moment, please. Next, bhikkhus, the noble disciple pauses and reflects in this manner. I am now being harassed and attacked by various consciousnesses and sense awareness. Try to meditate and you have noise coming in through the windows, through the neighbors, and the dog barking or the cars passing or something. That's one harassment. Or your body itches, or there's insects crawling. That's another harassment. How about the lighting or the wind? That's another harassment, etc., etc. See, these are different sense awarenesses or consciousnesses. So the person reflects, I remember, though, how in the past also I was harassed and attacked by various similar consciousnesses and sense awareness. And in the same manner that I am presently being, harassed and attacked by these various consciousnesses and sense awareness. Now, if I were to continue looking forward to experience various similar consciousnesses and sense awareness within the future, wanting to enjoy more delightful consciousnesses and sense awareness in what is yet to happen, then in the future also, I will certainly be harassed and attacked by various similar consciousnesses and sense awareness yet again, in much the same manner that I am presently being harassed and attacked by various consciousnesses and sense awareness. So if you're leaving the window open, you can't just expect there to be the smell of daisies or the jasmine or gardenias or roses to come through. You're also going to get a whiff of the sewage that's running nearby. You can't be selective, basically. If you want to have butterflies flying through your window, that's great. That's beautiful, beautiful butterflies. But you're also going to have plenty of mosquitoes coming in that are going to suck your blood, annoy you when you're trying to meditate. But if you're not top heavy on either one of these feelings, usually, or consciousnesses, usually, obviously, the lovely ones, the pleasant ones, if you're not heavily attached to that, then it means you won't be as bothered by the mosquitoes, the counterpart of that pleasant feeling. Having reflected and considered thus, he becomes unagitated, indifferent, and cooled towards consciousnesses and sense awareness experienced in the past. Likewise, he does not become anxious and instead remains unagitated without being tossed around by any desire to seek delight in various consciousnesses and sense awareness to be experienced in the future, things that have not yet happened. Thus, he practices by pausing and reflecting carefully within the present as he experiences disenchantment, becoming dispassionate and allowing the fading away of his old attachments towards all consciousnesses and sense awareness. In this way, he experiences the cessation of suffering that results from consciousnesses and sense awareness, whether pertaining to the past, present, or future. Now, Lord Buddha is going to change his approach now. This is something that, if you recall, we also came across this type of questioning that we're going to see from Nandakavada Sutta, Venerable Nandaka, when he was advising the Bhikkhunis. So this will be not as long, but it's very short, but it's the same approach. Now, what do you think, bhikkhus? Would you say that form is permanent or impermanent? It is impermanent, Bhante. And that which is impermanent, is it considered to be suffering or happiness? It is considered to be suffering, Bhante. So with what is impermanent, suffering, and thus unreliable in its changing nature, is it suitable for you to look upon it or claim it as this is part of me, this is happening to me, or this is myself? No, Bhante, it is not suitable. But that's what we do, don't we? This has happened to me. This guy ripped me off. Me, that guy did that to me. He hurt me. Okay. Or I fell and I broke my leg. My leg. All of a sudden, as if the universe just comes to that point of singularity, and the whole thing, the whole existence is conspiring to bring harm upon me, when there isn't anything like that. Because that same universe was actually treating you quite nicely. When you were suntanning by the pool, enjoying this and drinking your favorite drink, ice cold drink, and you were fine. What happened? All of a sudden, the universe sold you out? None of this is actually happening, because things are impermanent. And the very fact that they are impermanent, that causes them to be and to produce suffering, ultimately. But what we think is, we do is we attach to the pleasant and we rush away, run away from the painful. And we plan everything. We try to do everything to outsmart the painful, to outsmart existence, to give us something that is permanent, and definitely permanent as in good thing to be permanent. The bad things, we want them out. But that is idiocy. That's part of the vipallasas, the perversions of the mind, one of them. And then Lord Buddha continues, now what do you think, bhikkhus? Would you say feeling is permanent or impermanent? It is impermanent, Bhante. And that which is impermanent, is it considered to be suffering or happiness? It is considered to be suffering, Bhante. So with what is impermanent, suffering, and thus unreliable in its changing nature, is it suitable for you to look upon it or claim it as this is part of me, this is happening to me, or this is myself? No, Bhante, it is not suitable. Now, what do you think, bhikkhus? Would you say perception or memory is permanent or impermanent? It is impermanent, Bhante. Memory, basically, sannyas. And that which is impermanent, is it considered to be suffering or happiness? It is considered to be suffering, Bhante. So with what is impermanent, suffering, and thus unreliable in its changing nature, is it suitable for you to look upon it or claim it as this is part of me, this is happening to me, or this is myself? No, Bhante, it is not suitable. So Lord Buddha is dismantling the importance that, the solidified importance that we give to each of these khandhas. Now, what do you think, bhikkhus? Would you say habitual drives or sankhara are permanent or impermanent? They are impermanent, Bhante. And that which is impermanent, is it considered to be suffering or happiness? It is considered to be suffering, Bhante. So with what is impermanent, suffering, and thus unreliable in its changing nature, is it suitable for you to look upon it or claim it as this is part of me, this is happening to me, or this is myself? No, Bhante, it is not suitable. And what do you think, bhikkhus? Would you say consciousness or sense awareness is permanent or impermanent? It is impermanent, Bhante. And that which is impermanent, is it considered to be suffering or happiness? It is considered to be suffering, Bhante. So with what is impermanent, suffering, and thus unreliable in its changing nature, is it suitable for you to look upon it or claim it as this is part of me, this is happening to me, or this is myself? No, Bhante, it is not suitable. Exactly, bhikkhus. Such a person who is able to practice in this manner is declared as a true noble disciple who continues to take apart as he dismantles and keeps letting go of all assets instead of trying to accumulate anything. He's declared as a true noble disciple who keeps relinquishing and leaves them all behind instead of piling things up. A true noble disciple who keeps scattering and smoking them all out. A true noble disciple who extinguishes and does not rekindle. Now, Lord Buddha is going to open each of these up, elaborate on them. And what is it that he continues to take apart? Bhikkhus, as he dismantles and keeps letting go of all assets instead of trying to accumulate anything. By the way, assets, I like the term that Bhante Nyanananda uses for, the Pali term is upadhi, and upadhi means asset. If you think of it in financial terms, assets and liabilities. Assets are your income, basically, the money that you generate that comes to you, profits. Liability is what you owe, what you have to pay, your credit card bills, your insurance bills, your home mortgage, your rent, etc. So that's, in that way you can also look at assets. But what we do is we turn things that we experience into assets, such as insights that one experiences, your meditation. Even if one goes through the jhanas themselves become assets. One turns them into assets. Especially when you get to attainments, people hold on to these. But because of them holding on, they never progress. They never grow out of it. So just like the body is treated as an asset, but when you do, you're going to burn. It's like holding on to a big tanker ship with your hands as it's speeding away. Well, we know what's going to happen. And that's what we do, though. We grab onto these assets, whatever they may be, also relationships. Things that you value, basically, are assets. So Lord Buddha is going to explain as to what he meant by dismantling it, the true disciple dismantling it. He continues to take apart forms and appearances as he dismantles each and every one of them and keeps letting go of all assets pertaining to forms and appearances, instead of trying to accumulate anything pertaining to form. So he's giving him up. You're always giving up the assets. He continues, let's say you have a healthy body. Okay, you don't make it a bigger deal than it is. He continues to take apart feelings as he dismantles each and every one of them and keeps letting go of all assets pertaining to feelings, instead of trying to accumulate anything pertaining to feelings, whether good or bad. The neutral we usually ignore. We're very indifferent to neutral feelings, which to our detriment, because neutral feelings have a lot to teach us. And they're excellent tools for satipatthana. He continues to take apart perceptions and memories as he dismantles each and every one of them and keeps letting go of all assets pertaining to perceptions and memories, instead of trying to accumulate anything pertaining to sanya. He continues to take apart habitual drives, sankhara, as he dismantles each and every one of them and keeps letting go of all assets pertaining to sankhara, habitual drives, instead of trying to accumulate anything pertaining to habitual drives. Yes, you recognize that you have a certain response to situations. You don't beat yourself up over them. You say, okay, this is something I have to work through. I have to let go of this. So now you develop compassion and tolerance towards yourself having these sankhara, but you don't leave it at that. The next time you won't react immediately. You will take an extra second or two. Those extra seconds will allow you to distance yourself from that particular habitual drive or the sankhara. So you won't get to react as you used to. Eventually, you will be unidentifiable to your older self. And that's why this path, this practice, this Dhamma, when you live it properly and you practice it, those who knew you in the past, who haven't seen you for a while, and then they see you, they will have a hard time recognizing you, especially given certain situations. Because you have distanced yourself so far, so much from the sankhara that they die. This is where the avalanche starts to dissipate. Because the avalanche is made of what? Ice, snow. Well, that's the physical form of the ice, but if you melt it, what happens? It turns into liquid. The avalanche goes poof, and if you heat it up even more, what happens? It vaporizes, poof, goes up in smoke, if you will. Vapor. Disappears, this huge avalanche that we talked about, the sankhara. That is where your practice is taking you, every step of the way. He continues to take apart consciousness or sense awareness as he dismantles each and every one of them. And he keeps letting go of all assets pertaining to consciousness or sense awareness, instead of trying to accumulate anything pertaining to consciousness or sense awareness. Same principle. And what is it that he keeps relinquishing and leaves all behind instead of piling things up? He keeps relinquishing and leaving behind forms and appearances instead of piling them up or clinging to them. He keeps relinquishing and leaving behind feelings instead of piling them up or clinging to them. He keeps relinquishing and leaving behind perceptions and memories instead of piling them up or clinging to them. He keeps relinquishing and leaving behind sankhara instead of piling them up or clinging to them. He keeps relinquishing and leaving behind consciousness or sense awareness instead of piling them up or clinging to them. Remember, when you're listening to these words, I know there's a repetition going on, but remember one thing. There's 5 ways that Lord Buddha talked, explained, elaborated, and delineated as the only 5 ways whereabout a human, where awakening could happen, not just human. 5 ways. The first one, the most important one here, is through listening to the Dhamma. That's why I stress, I put so much effort. I just finished translating the sutta yesterday, but it's such a beautiful sutta. Yes, there's repetitions. That's why I never shy away from repeating, including the recitations. There's never like a clip that I use, some clip that I recorded, and I just reuse that because there's so many repetitions in some suttas. No, each segment has to be repeated, has to be repeated, has to be repeated. Because Lord Buddha repeated it. Why? Because the number 1 way of attaining arahantship, the first of 5, is through listening, he said. And in case you're wondering, the second, I've talked about this in a previous discourse. The second one is through teaching it. So, so please be open, be present to it. Don't go into automatic pilot. Okay? And what is it that he keeps scattering and smoking all out? He keeps scattering and smoking out all forms and appearances. He keeps scattering and smoking out all feelings. He keeps scattering and smoking out all perceptions and memories. This is basically you pulling the rug from under your memories and how significant they have made themselves to be to you. Feelings the same, the form the same. For that, you can use different tools like the Satipatthanas when you look at the body with the 32 parts. Oh, look at my body, or look at that body. It looks so attractive. Oh yeah, which part of the body looks attractive? How about we don't wash this body for 3 months? Are you going to be close to it again? How about the stench? I'm not even talking about the body, the cleaning, and then taking care of it, or the inside of the body. So that way you just smoked it all out. The jig is up. The magician's trick is blown. The cover is blown. That's what you need to be doing. Instead, otherwise, it's either that which takes you to freedom from suffering, because you see the whole gig, you see what's going on, or you follow the crowd into the movie theater where it's pitch black and there's a movie playing all the time, and you're always with this team or that team. There's this pendulum action going on. The middle path means you're out of the game. You're out from being tossed around by the pendulum and it swings. You're free. Nirodha. You're out of prison. That takes effort. It's not going to come haphazardly or by mistake or by chance. There's no such thing. He keeps scattering and smoking out all consciousnesses or sense awareness. And what is it that he extinguishes and does not rekindle again? He extinguishes all forms and appearances and does not rekindle them again. He extinguishes all feelings and does not rekindle them again. He extinguishes all perceptions and memories and does not rekindle them again. He extinguishes all sankhara or habitual drives and does not rekindle them again. He extinguishes all consciousnesses or sense awareness, and does not rekindle them again. Thus, through seeing all this, the noble disciple experiences disenchantment towards all forms and appearances, towards all feelings, towards all perceptions and memories, towards all habitual drives, towards all consciousnesses or sense awareness. Furthermore, becoming dispassionate and allowing the fading away of his old attachments to things, he is finally released. On being released thus, he knows for certain in his heart it is fully liberated. Thus, that bhikkhu comes to know directly, while understanding with absolute certainty, destroyed is birth. The holy life has been fully lived. What had to be completed has now been completed. There is no more rebirth into any state of becoming. And such a true noble disciple is declared to be the one who neither takes apart nor dismantles, nor lets go of assets, nor accumulates anything anymore. Yet he remains having dismantled all assets. See, this is like counterintuitive. He doesn't take things apart. He doesn't accumulate things either. He doesn't let go of assets, yet he remains having dismantled all things. It's like a surface, a material that never catches water, never absorbs water. The water comes and it's not like slapping the water molecules away. It's not absorbing them either. It slides off of it. Lord Buddha is describing the Arahant. They cannot accumulate anymore. Nothing sticks on them anymore. But that doesn't mean that they're not alive. They feel, they think, but nothing sticks to them. They're no longer like a sponge that absorbs, that takes things personally. Such a true noble disciple neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves them all behind, nor engages in piling up of anything anymore. He remains having relinquished them all, never to be piling up of anything again. So he lives while having relinquished, even though he does not relinquish. He's not engaged in doing the work. What this is also describing is when you cross the flood, when you cross the ocean, you get to the other side, the farther shore. What do you do with the boat? What do you do with the floaties that you had under your arms, your shoulders that were helping you not to sink, to keep you buoyant? What do? You take them off. You're done. So there is no question anymore. This person has done their work. They're done. Nothing else to be done. They are beyond the training. That's why Lord Buddha calls these individuals beyond the training. There's nothing left for them to accomplish. They've reached the maximum of wisdom. Such a true noble disciple neither scatters nor smokes out anything anymore, yet he remains having scattered and smoked them all out. So I love Lord Buddha's description of how he's saying one thing and then he's saying, by the way, he's already done them, even though he doesn't do them anymore. Such a true noble disciple neither extinguishes nor does he not rekindle anything anymore, yet he remains having extinguished it all, never to rekindle again. And what bhikkhus is it that he neither takes apart, nor dismantles, nor lets go of, nor accumulates anything anymore, as he remains having dismantled all assets? He neither takes apart, nor dismantles, nor lets go of, nor accumulates any forms or appearances anymore, as he remains having dismantled all assets pertaining to them. So if he has a six-pack body, let's say the Arahant, he doesn't even flinch. There's nothing. Nothing. Nothing registers. If he's hungry, he knows he's hungry. And that's the form, right? The body, the appearance. If he hasn't eaten for 3 days, even though he's doing his part, going on Pindapada, and there's no food, at the time of Lord Buddha, there were several famines that occurred. There were many arahants who went it became very emaciated. They didn't go knock on people's doors saying, hey, feed me, feed me. If you don't, the arahant is going to die here. No. They understood, okay, so big deal. There's no food. Yes, the body, I can see the rib cage. Yes, fine, big deal. But when there's food, you eat it. They don't go back and think, oh, remember, do you know that last month I was like so hungry, I was so hungry I was gonna die. I was this close last Vassa to dying. They don't do that. He neither takes apart, nor dismantles, nor lets go of, nor accumulates any feelings anymore, as he remains having dismantled all assets pertaining to them. Same thing with feelings. He neither takes apart, nor dismantles, nor lets go of, nor accumulates any perceptions or memories anymore, as he remains having dismantled all assets pertaining to them. Memories, having memories, regurgitating memories in the mind is daunting, is a harassment. It's a pain, having thoughts, especially when you go deep, and then you have to come out and you have to talk and address people, like Lord Buddha says in the Anguttara Nikaya a few times, I can't wait for these people to go home and leave me alone so I can just go to my peace, tranquility. That should be the mindset of a teacher, Lord Buddha says, especially for every bhikkhu. We don't look for companionship, especially the companionship of our thoughts. He neither takes apart, nor dismantles, nor lets go of, nor accumulates any habitual drive, sankhara, anymore, as he remains having dismantled all assets pertaining to them. They're already dismantled. He crossed over. He's on the other side. He's standing on the high ground, solid ground. He doesn't have to worry about the water or the sharks in it. He neither takes apart, nor dismantles, nor lets go of, nor accumulates any consciousnesses or sense awareness anymore, as he remains having dismantled all assets pertaining to them. Anidassana vijnana is another term. One way of looking at it, non-manifestative consciousness, as Bhante Candana calls it. Appatithita vijnana is another one. Or apanithita, which is unestablished. Unestablished. It doesn't have any like, goal in a sense, because you're done it. It's gone. And there's no need. And what is it? Because that he neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves all behind, nor engages in piling up anymore, as he remains having relinquished it all, never to be piling up again. He neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves forms and appearances all behind, nor engages in piling them up anymore, as he remains having relinquished it all, never to be piling up again. He neither keeps relinquishing. So if you notice, this is the opposite of the Putujjana earlier that Lord Buddha described. So this is the noble disciple who's gone beyond training. We call him Asekha. He neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves feelings all behind, nor engages in piling them up anymore, as he remains having relinquished it all, never to be piling them up again. He neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves perceptions and memories all behind, nor engages in piling them up anymore. When it happens, it happens. Sometimes it used to be sometimes it used to be called Kiriya Chitta, where there is nothing that sticks, but the Arahant is fully aware when it's happening, and that's why they don't make new kamma. They just have to deal with the past kamma that they still have to deal with because they're still alive in this form. But once the body dies, that's it. That's the end of whatever kammas that were in the past. But new kammas were not made from the moment of attaining arahantship. Nothing is being made because they're beyond kusala and akusala, if you will. They're beyond sankharas, if you will, making new ones. They don't. They just have to deal with the khandas that they have to deal with. They have to shave their head, shave their beard. They have to make sure there's food in the body. They have to do some walking if they can. And they practice meditation and teach. That's it. It's like the wind that never carries anything with it forever. It just goes through. It just goes through. He neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves habitual drives all behind, nor engages in piling them up anymore, as he remains having relinquished it all, never to be piling them up again. He neither keeps relinquishing nor leaves consciousnesses or sense awareness all behind, nor engages in piling them up anymore, as he remains having relinquished it all, never to be piling them up again. And what is it? Because that he neither scatters nor smokes out anymore, as he remains having scattered and smoked them all out. He neither scatters nor smokes out forms and appearances anymore, as he remains having scattered and smoked them all out already. He neither scatters nor smokes out feelings anymore. Perceptions, I'll just go through it fast here because it's the same principle. Perceptions and memories, habitual drives anymore, and consciousnesses or sense awareness anymore, as he remains having scattered and smoked them all out. And what is it? Because that he neither extinguishes nor is not to rekindle anymore, as he remains having extinguished it all, never to rekindle again. He neither extinguishes nor is not to rekindle forms and appearances anymore. Same thing with feelings. Same thing with sanya, same thing with sankhara, and same thing with consciousnesses or sense awareness anymore, as he remains having extinguished it all, never to rekindle again. And when the bhikkhu is thus released in his heart, then the devas, along with their king, Lord Indra, as well as Mahabrahma himself, bow down to him as they pay homage from afar, as both declare, "Homage be to you, O Venerable, O thoroughbred among all mankind. Homage to you, O highest and chief among all men. For we are now baffled and dumbfounded, since not even we ourselves know or understand as to what might be the basis of your meditation, O Venerable, upon which you are firmly anchored." Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Not even the Mahabrahma or Sakka, king of the gods, Indra, will know will be able to penetrate the mind of such an arahant to know as to what technique is he or she using. They won't even recognize, they won't be able to, because it's so far beyond. But this life provides us the means to do it, and the Dhamma is the means to do it. No other way. The Dhamma that Lord Buddha taught, as represented in these suttas, it's truly, truly incredible good fortune that we still have these. And that's like one hand. The other hand is you having a human birth, where you have the ability to process information, to ponder, to understand, to digest, and to look at your past, present, and future and make a decision. Joining these two together, that's where Nibbāna happens. That's how Nibbāna will happen. The Dhamma by itself won't make a sound. You need both. So I will pause here and see if there are any questions you might have, comments. Hopefully the sound came out right this time. All right, so let us transfer some merits then. Akasatha chabhumatha deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu lokasasanam. Akasatha chabhumatha deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu desanam. Akasatha chabhumatha deva nagamahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakhantu mam paranti. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the Triple Gems blessings be with you all. May your practice grow. May your understanding deepen. And may your wisdom spread to every nook and cranny of your living experience. And where the Dhamma reveals itself to you, and you put an end to suffering once and for all by seeing the Dhamma, Magga and Phala, the path and the fruit, Nibbāna. And may all your loved ones also share in these merits, and all the work that you're doing, may they all share in those rewards as well. The Dhamma is a gift that it keeps on giving. So it never will run out. The more you share, it will actually grow. That's the wonderful quality of the Dhamma. No need for asset holding. No need for uvadinna. So until next time, Sukhi Hota.